Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Final part of my conversation with Greg Sobocinski, who had responded to a job posting from CommC and wanted to know what I thought about the fit that he might have. We got into it, and I hope you find it helpful. Thanks, sponsors, not just CommC, but Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Hugs and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Card, Burbank Sports Cards. Thanks, Greg, for sharing your story. This is the final part of it, and we got into one of his other questions at the end. So thanks, everybody. Here it is.
CommC is well known for their current users, but the American Airlines Advantage program was the first large-scale corporate loyalty program, and it's gone on to great fame. Is there a CommC loyalty program? Now, PSA has a loyalty program in the sense that if you're a part of their club, Fanatics has people they're bringing into their ecosystem, and you're rewarded by doing stuff. I don't know that it's formal, but could CommC have a loyalty program that you get rewarded for your activity on CommC, as well as your social media promotion or your referrals, or see what I'm getting at? Just right. To tackle that and say, for example, I think I could be helpful in doing that. But it's not that they're going to steal your idea. They're going to say, we've already had that idea. But if you said, I've got some interesting ways I think that would work, that would make sense in this hobby, to me, that would get my attention if I were them. But you had 5 or 6 things, and I would narrow that down and go a little bit deeper to say, I'd be excited about contributing. You've already given your basketball, and I love being a facilitator, not worried about who gets a credit. I want to be on a winning team, and I want to do my share or more. Those are the things I'd want to hear from somebody. And I heard that from people when they were there. I want to join your team. And some of them said, I want to join your team so bad, I'll work for free. I said, fortunately, that's not legal. I have to pay you a fair wage. And that same person a year later, after they'd been there and done a great job, and I gave them a great raise, and they go, I'm underpaid. I said, wait, you're the person that was going to work for free. Now that I've seen how much hard work it is, I want to be paid a fair wage. And they were, but joking a little bit. But your materials you send them have to be so curiosity inducing that they say, we need to find a way to talk this guy, whether it's a Zoom interview, which is better than nothing, or at the Philly show, or at next year's National in Chicago or something like that. They may have gotten 100 resumes. I don't know what else is in the top group, but you have to be in there.
In your opinion, in the current ecosystem of hobby companies over the next 5 years, what do you think is probably one of the most important qualities that's being looked for, or that companies are really trying to bring onto their teams?
They obviously want expertise. Somebody's going to contribute now. But for me, and I chose right most of the time on this, is I wanted loyalty too. I didn't want to train somebody's going to go to work for one of my competitors. So I wanted to see something in their background that said, this guy likes to sink roots. He's not a fly-by-night in the hobby or in his work career. He hasn't changed jobs every 6 months. He's somebody who likes to build something and likes to harvest, loves being part of a team. That's part of the character that you have to read between the lines. I think it's known now in the industry. Once you get in the industry, if you do a really good job for one company, there's a good chance you will be poached. And so I'm just saying, I wanted people that were less poachable, that if we gave them their start and really got them going, they weren't going to jump ship for somebody that offered them slightly more money. Most of the original graders, and again, I'm not the boss anymore, but many of those original graders are still there, and they've had chances to go work for other grading companies. The price guide guys, for the most part, if they left the company, it was to do something different. They worked for the card companies in a product development area, which was interesting to them, and they've done great. And so I'm happy for them.
The opportunities that appeal more to me are really what enhances the collector experience and have that built into their mission, as opposed to this sidecar if it fits our agenda, so to speak.
You said the magic words. So the person you should talk to, and I'd be happy to facilitate an introduction, is Chris Carlin. He's the hobby customer experience guy. He did it for Upper Deck very well. He's now with collectors. If you were to have a conversation with him and get some input from him about, hey, here's my background, here's what I'm thinking, what do you think? Because I, like you, Chris, think that the customer experience is the main thing. So what advice do you have for me? He's probably a little bit older than you, but he's got 20 years of experience in the hobby. Okay. Now you're not competing with him for the CommC job, but if the CommC job came available and he was available, I think he'd go to the head of the line because they also want strategy. They want business partnerships, and he's got a Rolodex. You haven't demonstrated to me that you have the Rolodex, but I'd start with Chris Carlin. A Zoom call, I'd just like to pick your brain about not how he got into it, because that was ancient history, but for somebody like me with my background and really thinking the customer experience is really important. Could you just give me your reaction? And he'd be way better than me because he's in the thick of it right now.
From your perspective, how do you in the hobby right now, the collector experience?
Needs improvement on every level. It's a demanding industry. You have new people that don't even know. They may be comparing to some other experience, and what's good in our industry may not be good in others. Sticker autographs and redemptions and now pack searching. I had people call me many years ago and say, "You will be an idiot if you don't interview this guy." And it was a guy I respected, and I thought, this is the first time he said, "This guy is the best guy I've ever run across. You have to interview. In fact, you're probably an idiot if you don't hire him." Actually, I did hire the guy. And I always thank the guy for thank you for being that forceful. Who's that person in your corner, Greg? I don't know you well enough to call up Tim Getch and say, "You know what? I just had a conversation with Greg. He seems sharp. You have to," but see, I don't have personal knowledge. It's a little bit secondhand and we're getting to know each other. But as you further these relationships, you've got somebody in your corner saying you have to talk to him because I think he would be a great addition to your team. Frankly, I did that for Rich Klein. When Rich Klein was applying to ComC, I did talk to Tim. I said, "Rich is exceptional. You need to give him every consideration. I've worked with him for many years. I don't believe you'll regret it if you add him to your team." And I could be really forceful about that. If you've got somebody like that, then that speaks volumes. The other problem you have, and this is the problem in every industry, is that as Tim has grown ComC, he has brought in vice presidents and decision makers, just like I had to do, not all of whom have the same hobby understanding. And they may be the ones making the decision. The ones I've met are sharp. It's not that, but some of them have more hobby insight than others. So hopefully, either way, if it's a VP that's going to hire you and they don't have hobby insight, we're going to get Greg on our team because he gets it. He knows what kind of a customer experience we're trying to create. So that may be an advantage for you. Good credentials, hobby insights, good work ethic, high character and integrity. Who doesn't want that on their team? You need that to somehow be in the meta message of your materials that you're sending in. I remember when they were just starting, but over the years, they've continually grown. And they've expanded greatly since COVID even. They've got some new people in decision-making positions. Did you read between the lines that the business partnerships that you see the greatest opportunity with is not with the formal major businesses as much as LCSs and local card shops? Because to me, that's low-hanging fruit for them because there's a lot of card shops that don't understand CommC and just think that's for whatever non-card shops. We've already got a card shop here. Instead of saying, just like eBay, that's something I need to be aware of as a tool, as an opportunity for me to sell certain stuff on ComC that sells better on ComC than it does in the card shop. Because if so, I would double down on that. And for example, just to personalize it to you, and just say, last Saturday, I visited 8 shops within 50 miles of here. And I visited with each one of them for a little while when they weren't so busy because I didn't want to disturb their customer experience. But I talked to them, I looked at their inventory, and in 30 minutes in each store, talking to the owner or the manager, I could find out whether they're doing ComC. So I've already done a Saturday sample of 8 card shops. And here's what I found. Just by spending some time with them, they were intrigued with the possibility of ComC, but they really didn't know what they didn't know. To me, that's helpful. You're not giving away the farm. You showed them the way you would approach that problem. And they would say, "That's an interesting way to do it. I don't think we're going to fly Greg all around the country, but for him to visit some shops that are near him, as well as talk to some that are around the country, and to try to encourage them to use ComC." Or like say a loyalty program. If a card shop signed up users for ComC that were buyers, if it was like affiliate marketing, I would say ComC is a great experience for me but I don't dabble in it. I'm all in. The people that dab in CommC don't always do well. You had written me about seeing opportunities for getting obscure players going deep in a player. And does that make any sense? It makes a lot of sense if the player hits it big at some point in the future, but it's kind of interesting. And it relates to CommC is that if you're looking for an obscure player, CommC is a really good place to look. If I were to stumble on obscure cards of obscure players, generally I pick them up because I think eventually they'll sell on ComC. So your question even relates back to ComC. If it's not a mass appeal thing, but the hobby is really always going to have a component that's about the long tail.
Yeah, 100%. Long tail.
So this is the way you're thinking, Greg, and that would be appealing to ComC because it shows you understand ComC's role in the larger ecosystem of buying and selling cards.
Yeah, yesterday I was at the gym and that phrase long tail was stuck in my head the entire time. Yeah, these sales that happen continuously, you see it'll trail off over time, but you still have those sales and you still want collectors to be able to find those things they're looking for and unearth them in some way or another.
However, if you look at ComC, ComC's marketing efforts are not moving toward the long tail as much as they're moving toward the glamour cards. They're making a big deal about their auctions and their partnerships and things like that. That isn't the long tail. That's the higher dollar cards. To me, that's not their sweet spot, but that's where they're going with their marketing thrust to tout their 4-digit, 5-digit kind of auction cards that are $500 and up. I'm not saying that isn't part of their lane, but I think they have a huge market share and a huge edge on the mid and lower price cards.
I historically have been at shows, a box digger. I love searching, listening to your show. I think you're much the same.
To me, if I was applying for a job, I'd say I love going to the dollar boxes and I find some stuff in there that I can put on ComC. You're immediately a kindred spirit with ComC because most people, regardless of age, are looking for the higher dollar cards. And if ComC is looking for a higher dollar marketing position with business partnerships to be able to get more $1,000 cards, that wouldn't be me. Maybe it wouldn't be you, but it's what a lot of people think of. That ComC needs to move up market instead of owning the long tail.
What I've seen in a lot of shows, there seems to be this decline in the number of people who do bring box inventory. It seems to be much more showcase oriented, or at least the shows around me. Why that's interesting, I ask sometimes, hey, do you have any stuff to look through? And people, oh no, I left that at home. That seems like prime pickings for inventory that might be perfect for a ComC. You have this inventory that sellers aren't bringing to shows. It's still valuable. People still want to look through it, but they're not lugging it around. They're more focused on the high dollar, but there's cards available that are just sitting there behind the scenes. That could be
the cost of the real estate on the table or under the table, whatever. They're going to put the higher dollar stuff on there. Again, that pushes people to ComC if they know about it. But ComC, we haven't talked about this, but the big barrier is 50 cents. So a dealer that has 100 cards, they want to sell for a couple $100. And ComC says, you send them to us and we're going to charge you $50 to list those 100 cards. So now I'm $50 in the hole. So they're maybe not going to do that on the come unless they have seen that there's a steady sales pattern. So dealers need to understand the value proposition. They've already figured out it's not worth it for me to take up half my table with bargain boxes if I can put another showcase there with some $500 cards that was selling one is equal to selling a whole bunch of those dollar cards.
The